The G7 intends to discuss secondary sanctions against Chinese banks. However, we are not yet talking about immediate measures, such as, for example, restricting access to SWIFT system of international transfers, Reuters reports. The U.S. Treasury Department has repeatedly warned financial institutions in China of their responsibility for cooperation with the aggressor country.
Concern is that China is increasingly the factory of the Russian war machine. You can call it the arsenal of autocracy when you consider Russia's military ambitions threaten, obviously, the existence of Ukraine, but increasingly European security, NATO, and transatlantic security.
According to the Financial Times, the Russian dictator asked the Chinese leader to strengthen the presence of Chinese banks in Russia during his visit to Beijing. Putin and Xi Jinping agreed to identify financial institutions that will finance trade in components for the Russian defense industry. The U.S. State Department confirmed that secondary sanctions would be imposed on such banks.
Chinese support was helping Moscow reconstitute elements of its military, including long-range missile, artillery and drone capabilities, and its ability to track battlefield movements. Where we are primarily focused are on Chinese companies that have been involved in a systematic way in supporting Russia, he said when asked if the Chinese leadership and banks could be targeted. Kurt Campbell, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, in a comment to the Financial Times.
In December 2023, U.S. President Joe Biden signed an executive order that allows secondary sanctions on companies and banks from third countries for helping the Russian Federation circumvent sanctions. According to Reuters, Washington may soon announce significant new restrictions on Chinese companies.
We've seen an increase in exports from China to Russia, and particularly of certain dual-use goods that may be critical to Russia's war effort. And let me say that I have been extremely clear at the highest levels of the Chinese government that this is something we will not tolerate, and that we intend to sanction this activity.
The threat of such restrictions has already forced Chinese major banks to reduce payments and settlements on cross-border transactions with the Federation or refuse them entirely. For example, in 2023, Chinese banks showed the growth of assets in Russia, and about a dozen financial institutions stopped transactions with Moscow in Chinese yuan. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavska, Христина Домбровська, UATV News.